like action? Do you yearn for a comic book movie that doesn't spawn 15 critical drinker hate-watching reviews? A movie that has more violence than we deserve? How about a movie made for kids, with gratuitous nudity for no reason other than it's awesome? Well, I have the story for you.
People have anything better to do with your time? It's 2 o'clock in the goddamn morning, for Christ's sake. Shit.
Simple and effective stories. Stories perfectly told by a director, the man who edited Terminator 1 and 2, True Lies, Starship Troopers, The Last Boy Scout, Commando, and Rambo 2, trained by Alfred Hitchcock, comes a movie that gave a kid everything he ever wanted for Christmas. But Santa had a grenade launcher. A movie that refined the genre and set the stage for Blade to refine the R-rated comic book genre.
Take that message to your people.
A movie that reminded you that the greatest villains in cinematic history were the Japanese. They had Yakuza, business wizards, samurai, ninja, spies, and karate. Communists can't even villain half as good as this. It's the pinnacle of comic movies. If you like fantastically unrealistic movies, sincerely executed, over-the-top violence, high theater, indulgent pain, and the perfect mix of mindless action and mindful characters, this is for you. This movie is your cool older brother who came home from college and brought you stories of all the hot chicks that are waiting for you. It's the peak of comic, in The Punisher, 1989.
All the way in.
I think I'm going with that for the intro from now on. Just the trailer. Oh, dude, it's awesome. We're going red today. The part about the Punisher, I actually like. It's the nothing to do with nothing. But there's a scene in the end where they're breaking into the Yakuza building and they have Shake, the character, blood up all the lights. So what they do is like a thematic thing is they just douse the whole scene in red. And the idea is it's pitch black right now, but this is how you as the audience can look at it. And it's like the theatrics of it. I just love. It's such a great stylistic choice. And so yeah, we're going with that today. Better than candy. I feel like a kid again. Yeah, I don't know what it is, man, about parents. I was like 8 years old or something like that when they showed me this movie, and it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. There was a guy in there in the comments. He's like, yeah, one day my parents went off to church and they left me at home and I watched Basic Instinct and The Punisher. I was like 10. And I'm like, these are functional, well-adjusted adults. Why are parents freaking out right now? This is awesome. What I like about the Critical Drinker is that anything coming out is borderline for me. I take his opinion seriously. I'm sure you do. I don't, though. Look, he's very successful. This isn't a hater thing. Here's the part that drives me nuts about it. If you're going to be a critic, you better be goddamn good. It's very easy to say everything sucks. He actually did a crowdfund for his, he was making a new short film on something. Arguably shit. Nobody liked it. So it makes it very hard to take his thing seriously. What are his critiques anyway? His critiques are that feminism sucks. Which, look, I'm not going to sit here and defend feminism. God knows if you know my content, you know that's the furthest thing from my mind. But, like, be able to be better. Just shitting on Star Wars because Kathleen Kennedy is a bitch doesn't really cut it. It's very lazy stuff. Yeah, all he says, Disney bad. And that's more so, it's not so much him, it's just he's endemic of a thing where people talk about the thing, but they don't talk the thing. It's no different than nerds. There's like a very specific group of people that I shit on Ohrian, and that's like the first one is the nerds. Yeah, they love movies. They'll love The Punisher. Oh, The Punisher's the greatest and blah, blah, blah. But what do they talk about? Oh, the box art is done by this guy and the original packaging this. And look at the DVD. It doesn't have any of the DVD rot that they had in the thing. And they talk about the packaging. They talk about the box art. They talk about everything but the fucking movie. It's like, oh, you can't watch this one. It's the original packaging. You can't take it out. It's like, dude, what's the point of a toy if you're not going to play with it? How are you going to talk about how great this movie is when you didn't even watch it? and you're busy focused on the packaging. How is that any different than the critical drinker types or the Jeremy from the Quartering types? Oh, well, the feminists, the people I don't like touch this. It's horrible. Yeah, it's horrible, but I don't think you care about that. I don't think you care about that. I think you care more that bad people are in charge of it, and you're talking about it no differently. It's the packaging. You're not watching a movie on a movie's terms. You can watch the Star Wars sequels on their own terms and then tell people why they're absolute shit and why you probably shouldn't watch them. But at a certain point, by the 20th time you've done that, you're kind of past like functional opinions about the movie. You're just rage baiting people. And I think it's ridiculous because now it's like there's 24 hours in the day. You guys are giving me an hour to rant about The Punisher, and I love you for it, man. I love you for it. Oh, see, Sluggo, that's the reason I have you here. He actually mentioned Kathleen Kennedy also made Poltergeist back in the day. I'm not going to lie. Had I known she'd have made Poltergeist, I probably would have been counter-signaling about how awesome she was. Poltergeist 1 and 2. Fucking awesome movies. They were like you know how everybody loves The Thing for the classical special effects? Poltergeist kind of had that too. I remember as a kid, the scene where the guy with braces would look in front of the mirror, and then his braces came out and kind of tied him to the ceiling. Freaked the fuck out of a child. And then Poltergeist 2, they did this thing. There was a phase in the late 80s where everything had to be in a skyscraper. I want to say Die Hard kicked that trend off, but I don't know for sure. I haven't looked into it. Case in point, Poltergeist 2, they were in a skyscraper that got taken over by the Indian burial ground. Die Hard hiding in a skyscraper. It was a very claustrophobic environment, so it was ripe for like people taking it over, and in the 80s people were starting to build more of them. And the third example, this movie is called Demons 2. I have had a hell of a time trying to find it. I think it's a Japanese or Korean horror. It's demons, but functionally they're zombies. And it was just terrifying to me as a kid. I remember that was the two movies that freaked me out as a kid was Demons 2 and Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And the only scene I can remember vividly in my mind was at the very beginning. There was a birthday party. And everybody was sitting here having fun in their little New York skyscraper. And then the chick's falling over and her teeth start falling out on the birthday cake and that stuff. And then she turns into a demon, kills everybody in there. They all turn into demons. Fucking crazy. Yeah, Towering Inferno kind of started it. Absolutely. As far as I know, that was the earliest one. Because I think Towering Inferno was like 57 or something like that. Yeah. But see, that's interesting stuff. One comment from a guy named Sluggo, more interesting than the last 50 Critical Drinker videos. He's just wasting the audience's time. That would actually be, if I did that on this kind of channel, these kind of like, I wonder why this happened. I would definitely have a Kathleen Kennedy did Poltergeist. Why Poltergeist is awesome? What the fuck happened to her? Like, that would be interesting. Anyways, enough of that. Let's get back to The Punisher. The Punisher in 89. I don't get how it got forgotten. I've never forgotten it. Anybody who likes it never forgot it, but for some reason everybody's like, "Oh, Blade made R-rated action for comics the greatest thing." I'm like, "No, it didn't." Blade came out I think 10 years after The Punisher. The Punisher in 89, as far as I can tell, is the first time where they made a comic. Actually, I even got to say maybe Conan. Because the Conan was 86, I think, 85 or 86. And the Punisher was 88, 89. I want to say. But yeah, like Conan, they had nudity, they had sex, he was chopping heads off. It was fucking awesome. And everybody realized, dude, I can make a comic book movie. And you can treat it seriously. I haven't made a Conan video, it's not about that. But yeah, like they had the orchestra. It's the same as Star Wars. They gave it like the orchestraic thing. They treated it seriously. And then the Punisher kind of went with that too. It's like, all right, let's do it in the same tone and vibe as the serialized TV action of the time. Like if you grew up to or watch it in retrospect, like Knight Rider, A-Team, G.I. Joe, Transformers, even some of the cheaper stuff like GoBots, whatever, Power Rangers, Ultraman, Astro Boy, all of those serialized action shows out there, they all had a very similar feel to them. It was very nothing ever happens. And it started, I don't know if it started, but I'm going to say it started. It started this thing where the main character doesn't have a character arc. Because the main character is the anchor that holds the story together. And so it's always the surrounding characters that have a character arc. I talked about it in the I Come in Peace video, the very first video on this channel. If you haven't watched it, it's probably one of my best. Probably one of the best. But you see it there. Dolph Lundgren plays the main character in I Come in Peace. Has zero character arc. Does not grow. Doesn't have wants. Doesn't have needs. He's the glue that holds it together. Do you know who has character arcs? Brian Benben, his sidekick. The woman in there who also played... she was the actor they used for rotoscoping for Fire and Ice, the Ralph Bakshi stuff. And I think Cool World, too. Yeah, she played the chick in Cool World, like Kim Basinger character. She was the one doing all the dancing for that, if I remember correctly. But they all had character arcs. She gives up her job to go on vacation with him. Brian has to learn that being the top student and the good boy will not get you ahead in the FBI. It's going to get him killed. And so he had to make a decision to be the good cop. Punisher does the same thing, man. The Punisher has zero character arc. He started as the Punisher. They give you a flashback of his family getting killed, and now he wants punishment and revenge. And that's it. Goes through the whole movie. That never changes. Kills a dad in front of his kid. And he tells the kid, if you follow in his footsteps, I'm coming for you too, you little bastard. Like, Jesus. Jesus. But who has the character arcs? And this is the one thing I love about the Punisher. It did something. I tried to find an example. I can't find one where they gave the character arc to the antagonist. You just don't see that in movies. Like, the character arc is always the main character. And if the main character doesn't have it, it's the secondary character or the audience insert. It's never the antagonist. It's never the villain. In this case, the villain. And they gave him a tragic character arc so the hero can still win. I'm like, it's on a technical achievement level, it's fucking brilliant. I'm actually going to take that in my mind, and I have a feeling in the future I'm going to be writing a book that's going to have that concept. The main guy's name is Franco. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but the Frank Castle, Franco, hero, villain, I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but absolutely hilarious. Super mafia guy. He talks in the beginning about how he wants to, like the family method of mafia isn't going to work. We need to have something bigger, better. We have to advance. There was a very 80s thing of its time. Everybody loved reinvigorating things, turning everything corporate, right? And that's what he did. You saw that. When they're having mafia meetings, it's in a big corporate boardroom. Same as like Come in Peace. Corporate boardrooms are where all criminal masterminds work nowadays. And the Japanese were taken over because Americans were like lazy and Frank had killed a lot of his people and they were losing their power and the Japanese were coming to take over. Does that not sound like an 80s plot point? And it's why the Japan was probably the greatest movie villain. They were great for it. They were literally... Because communists were always, we have to beat the communists. But with Japan, it was, dude, Japan's kicking our ass. It made America the underdog in films again, and you hadn't seen that. You hadn't seen that ever. America was never the underdog. America was always on top, and we need to keep things right. Like, they're fighting for what's right. But the first time where, like, this villain has a real chance of taking us out was the Japanese. It's fucking awesome. I like to rank old movies by their watchability so I can have go-to date movies. Amityville Horrorville. Interesting. Never would have pictured that one. I agree, though. If it's ones that I can't watch now, like I loved as a kid, but I can't watch now, I don't put them on my list of stuff for Ohrian. It's like, if I can't watch it today and still enjoy it, then it doesn't count. But yeah, so he now has the issue. He has wants and he has needs. And that's what every character arc has. You have a want and a need. And the character wants what he knows what he wants, but he doesn't know what he needs. And that's the fundamental difference between them. They're both essentially plot-driven goals, right? So he wants to take over the crime area here. He wants to restructure the family crime thing to make that all work. But what does he need? And then you kind of see it. Like, his kid doesn't even know he's in crime. A bunch of other kids bully him. He actually beats up other criminal mafia kids when they say his dad is like a super criminal. And so the kid kind of like, he needs him to be a dad. Needs him to stand up, needs to look for him. He needs him to act the way the kid thinks he is. He doesn't know he needs that, but he does need it. And of course, with every character arc, you get two things. You either get a successful character arc, comedy, or a tragedy, an unsuccessful character arc. So, and the difference is, the unsuccessful character arcs will have a fatal flaw, something that the person does. Their hubris takes them down. They make the wrong decision that costs them their life, shit like that. And that's exactly what happened here. When he finished, took out the Japanese, rescued his son. All he had to do then was just leave, take his son, go and be a dad. Wow, Dad, you came to rescue me. You guys are heroes. No, what does he do then? Picks up a gun, tries to kill the Punisher. He's like, hey, thanks, but you're in my way. I need to take you out. And so he tries to kill them. They fight. He gets shot. Punisher kills him. Tragic ending, character flaw. And I was like, yeah, I've just never seen a villain have the character arc in a movie before. That's just fucking awesome. The plot point reminds me of The Man in the High Castle. Such a good premise. What would the USA look like had Hitler won? Well, I mean, it was always fantastical, because it was like, even if Hitler won, he never would have gone into the States. The States has two giant oceans of defense. It's never going to happen. But, I mean, it's a good what if. Yeah, and so when you watch this again, like as a kid you watch, you're like, oh, dude, there's violence and titties and hot chicks and ninjas. Like, how do you not, as a 10-year-old kid, this is your crack. This is everything you've ever wanted in a movie, and it holds up awesome. He just killed that ninja with a shotgun. He just stabbed that samurai with a sword. He just broke that chick's neck for trying to cut him with a knife. He just threw that knife into that chick's head. This is awesome. The mafia's getting mowed down. Just took out a casino. Look at that. They're strippers. What self-respecting person wouldn't find that awesome? But then you watch it again, and you're older, and it's like, the internet's full of tits. I don't need more tits right now. So what do you see? Oh my god. The character arc's the villain on this one. That's pretty cool. The hero... And like Frank has his partner, and his partner has another arc. And this is the one thing, too, that serialized stuff does that you don't see a lot anymore. They set stuff up that would be great to mine for a sequel, but they don't make sequels on it. So it's like there is a world that's happening in The Punisher, and you get to see a slice of it. And there's threads that branch out everywhere. Oh, stuff that happened, stuff that is happening. And he's played by Louis Gossett Jr., which I don't know how he wasn't more popular. He's like Bret Hart. You know when you ask everybody as a kid, who's your favorite wrestler? Nobody ever said Bret Hart was their favorite wrestler. Bret Hart was everybody's second favorite wrestler. But everybody's second favorite wrestler. Louis Gossett Jr. was like everybody's favorite actor that they didn't remember they liked. He was in Toy Soldiers with Sean Astin, which is like Die Hard for college kids with Sam from the thing. There's a whole bunch of Die Hard ripoffs. It's a really good movie. He had Iron Eagles, which I'm due. Actually, yeah, video tasties. I think it was you and I. We're supposed to watch Iron Eagle and talk about that one. Which I don't know. We'll figure out how that's gonna work. I don't even know. There's just hundreds of movies he's in, and he was just really good. Like, he could have been Lawrence Fishburne, Denzel Washington big, and for some reason just never happened. I don't know why. Probably because he wasn't at enough P. Diddy parties. Well, hey, Bret Hart's everybody's favorite now. Like, now that everybody's watching those shooting videos, everybody's like, dude, Bret Hart is the most amazing wrestler ever. Because now Hulk Hogan's like, everybody's like, man, fuck Hulk Hogan. And the Ultimate Warrior's like, man, what a fucking idiot. Arguably Undertaker is the other. He and Bret Hart are the two guys that like everybody loves now. Ric Flair too. But yeah, Bret Hart back in the 80s and 90s was everybody's second favorite wrestler. As a Canadian, I gotta admit though, the Hart family. It's like the Hart family to Canada is the same as Manning's. The Peyton Manning and the other guys. It's like the Mannings for football for America. That's the Hart Foundation. That's the Hart family for Canada. National treasures. If Gretzky's kids were playing really good hockey, he could have done it, but yeah, he didn't. But yeah, so you watch it now and it's just great. And there's this other thing too that they do on this, and I'm gonna, oh boy, I'm gonna take you back to some art history stuff. So European art was different than African or Asian art in the sense that a lot of African and Chinese and Japanese stuff was built on stylization, abstractions. Japanese watercolors, Chinese paintings, African art. A lot of stuff you see that's like modern time stuff, like Cubism, was based on stylized African art. And that goes all the way back to like the Syrian Empire, back when they used to draw frescoes of their griffins on statues. And you show the beast with 5 legs. And like, why is the animal, why is like a 4-legged animal? Why does it have 5 legs? It's because you're only meant to look at it from the side or from the front. So when you look at it from an 45-degree angle, you see 4 legs and then another 3 legs there, kind of thing. Europe never did that. Europe was always about, they used symbolism, analogy, allegory, stuff like that. And you watch like the old medieval stuff, you see that, proportions are out of place in that. But it was always meant to represent the real world, and it was the symbology. And then you get to the High Renaissance when they started adding mathematics to it. And that's when perspective was big, and that's when realism was big. It was seen as a faux pas back then to actually have brushstrokes visible in your paintings. And the High Renaissance, like I want to say it's the 1500s, maybe the 1400s, is where they kind of peaked on that. So what came next was an era called the Baroque. Biggest artist there is the Caravaggio. If you're asking what Caravaggio has to do with the Punisher, here's where the payoff happens. They stopped looking at art as naturalistic, like represent the outside world and then use symbolism. They started to make it more theatric. You'll see this in Caravaggio's work where all of a sudden like lighting is more dramatic. It's called chiaroscuro, or having tenebrism. And that's like heavy light, heavy shadow. It's an Italian term. And the picture plane started to shrink. So in Renaissance stuff, you'd have like this wide picture plane all the way down to the horizon. In Baroque stuff, you'd see like you'd be in a room. There'd be walls in the way. It would really close things off. And that was because they made it look more like a theater showing as opposed to like viewing the outside world. This is what the Punisher does right. And this is what you don't see now in the age of CG. When you watch this movie, you'll notice that every scene, there's fog machines set up. The background is just jet black in places. Like he was just in a warehouse. But you watch this part of it right there, it's like he's just a character sitting in a void, talking to the person like he's doing a soliloquy in theater. There's a theatric to it. And this is arguably because the guys who were working on it weren't huge comic book guys, but they were really good movie guys. And they were old school movie guys. They did this the way they used to make movies in the 50s, before French Wave. French New Wave, I've talked about it before. A big part of the New Wave was... you know what, that part doesn't matter. But the big part about the 50s stuff is like, using heavy leitmotifs, orchestras as leitmotifs, like the music signals you to when characters come, characters go, scene transition, stuff like that. Show the theatrics. Like if I can get, I was like, I'll put the movie up, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't. But maybe I can... No, I better not mess with that either. But you'll see scenes where it's very claustrophobic that way, and it looks like theater lighting. And in that way, you're meant to fill in the blanks for yourself, right? Like, yeah, you know what he's doing, you know where he's at. Your brain understands what it's like to be at a dock shooting at people through the thing. You understand the concept. But they don't show you that. They show you, like, blackness, void. In the Yakuza headquarters, what are they showing you? Shoji screens everywhere. That's not what a Yakuza headquarters looks like, but it's fucking symbolically, it's just great. Walking through walls and stuff like that. It has like the big Godzilla walking through the things. And so the theatrics of it allows you to use your imagination more. And I think that's something that, like, if you ever wondered why you watch The Punisher, there's hundreds of little decisions like this that you wouldn't have even thought of. But the fact that they're in there just makes it more pleasurable. And you can't nail down why. You just only notice it when it's gone. Like when you watch a Marvel movie and they have that stupid 360 green screen thing where it's like this most expansive background with hundreds of little dancing things in there. And you realize it's just jangling keys, right? It's just fireworks splash. You're just like, And you're kind of like, it's the most impressive scope you've ever seen in a movie to watch 500 Avengers fighting 500 Thanos armies in a giant, desolate, gray and brown hellscape. But you're like, it was much more visceral to watch that scene in The Punisher where the guy's fighting in a 3x3 room of shoji screens. The girl's got knives on her boots. She's trying to cut him and he snaps her neck. It's like, Jesus. Like, they really get it. And you never thought about it. Never thought about it until it's there. Symbolism is literally alchemy, which was an important influence in creating science. Yeah, I can bet. Rats, my index finger has a lisp. It happens. Nature e mort Caravaggio, always a grinning skull lurking. I didn't know about the Caravaggio skull thing. I just know he was a big fan of being subversive, like painting dirty feet on Christ and stuff like that. A lot of the surrealists like doing that stuff too. Like, I think Salvador Dali's Crucifixion's one of my favorite depictions of it in art anyways. So you see this, and it's like, and these guys, they did 1950 stuff, so that's the thing, the leitmotifs, the theatrics of it. And then you put those together, it's something you wouldn't have pictured out, because they have, ultimately, because comic book movies were new, people had to think creatively on, how do I depict, like, making a book into a movie? People were used to that. Making theater productions into movies, people were used to that. How do I turn this picture book into a movie? That was something new. So, like, how do I do this? And I was watching this, trying to figure out what choices did they make to solve it. And you watch some things, like the cinematography, for example. And they've kind of walked back from this, which is kind of annoying. A lot of static shots. There's not a lot of camera movement. And when there is camera movement, it's mostly either like the camera is static on a car, but the car is moving. So it's still a static shot, but the background's kind of moving there. Or on the occasional times when they do have camera movement, it's because they want to keep the main character static in the frame. And when you watch this and you think about, like, if I was watching a comic book, that's kind of how that's like a really subtle way of them pulling it off. The panel is always stationary. And you watch how they stage things. Staging and blocking are theater terms where it's how do you put the characters and the set pieces in place to make a visually coherent theme, I guess. So, like, when you watch it's 3 o'clock in the goddamn morning, for Christ's sake, and you watch that was like a well staged piece. And if you were thinking of this as a comic book, if you were to draw a panel to symbolize that, that's exactly what you would have drawn. Yeah, you see at the beginning when the Punisher blows up that mafia guy's house, and then he stands in front of the door just before it all blows up. If you were to draw that scene in a comic book, that's what the panel would look like. And you're realizing, yeah. So they took, and it's not based on any specific comic. So this is where it's like really clever. They took a look at this plot and they drew it as if it was a comic book. And then they looked at this individual panels. What's the most interesting visual piece of this scene? And then they make that the set piece. And then they make that the framing. And then everything kind of works in service of that. So it's almost like you turn a comic book into a series of vignettes where it's like 10 seconds before the scene, pause, and then, a couple seconds after, and it fades out. Fades in, fades out. And when you watch it from that, you're like, dude, these people that didn't know comics or nothing, because these guys, you watch them, they didn't write anything similar to this. The director, Flowers in the Attic, did that the year before. You ever watched Flowers in the Attic? Oh, it's a depressing movie, man. When they kill that little kid with the poison cookies, Jesus Christ. You trying to depress me? It's like Grave of the Fireflies, but real action, real life. Oh, man. Yeah, almost all the old masters said, you're talking about art now. Yeah, a lot of the teams, when you think of like classic artists, by the way, they aren't individuals. They run studios. So it's kind of similar now to the way you watch movie directors. Like Steven Spielberg is not the one person. He has an entire crew of people working for him to make a Steven Spielberg movie. It's kind of the same thing, but with classic art. Yeah, like him or hate him, Zack Snyder makes some shots that are beautiful and look like comic books. See, that's the thing. He does that, but what he's missing is what these guys did, where they knew that ultimately it requires a story. Because these framing and these shots and these cinematography, they're very beautiful things, but they need to be in service of the story. They can't be in lieu of the story. Identically, the crowd you criticize around Critical Drink will go nuts when anybody mentions them. Yeah, well, that's because it's popular. It's cool. The cool kids make fun of Zack Snyder. If Zack Snyder got out of his own way and gave his movies to storytellers and he handled the cinematography and those shot choices, you would see some amazing Zack Snyder movies. Some amazing ones. Films, the evolution of Renaissance art, not contemporary art. Well, yeah, well, I mean, all of it is the evolution of technology surrounding it. Because technically contemporary art is just Renaissance art after the invention of the camera. And it's something I've talked about a lot on the other channel, but I'll talk about it here. When you talk about old art, people were trying to draw, at least in Western art, they were trying to naturalistically draw the world. They use symbology to tell stories. Camera comes out. Now we can realistically paint the outside world better than any human ever could do. So art has had like a 150-year existential crisis about, well, now that photography can do our job better than us, what is art? So when you watch Cubism, it was literally taking the old stylized African art styles and moving it in there. You watched action painting by Jackson Pollock. It was, well, maybe it's the idea of just like the way you're painting as an action. Maybe that is the art. And so everybody kind of explored all these things, and that's why contemporary art. When you watch filmmaking, they're just like, okay, so if the picture is art, what about moving pictures? And they kind of expand, and that's how like the Renaissance thread goes in. Renaissance to cameras to films, and that's how the art thing goes. Yeah, the problem with Zack Snyder is he's functionally illiterate. He is. He just doesn't know how to tell a story. That's really it. So when you have these great visuals and there's no story behind it, yeah, it looks pretty, and you'll watch it once. Does anybody watch this? And I'll admit, Watchmen, I liked Watchmen. I think he did a good job on it. I've also watched the guy that did that animated comic book version movie of it. I don't know what they're called. There's like a series where they essentially take like the comic panels and they kind of subtly animate them so it looks like it's moving. You can see he could have done a lot better with it. But that's probably his best work. And even then, nobody appreciates it. And it'll never be on this channel. It's never, like, I enjoy it, but you will never see it on this channel with like the greatest blah blah. It's never going to be that. But it's storytelling. But that's the thing. You can have an amazing story with crappy execution, and you will go far, well, over the long term, you'll do far better than people who make an amazingly executed bad story. Good example of this, the Star Wars sequels. You probably watched them once. Are you going to watch them a second time? Not really. And I'm trying to think of what's a good example of a movie that had horrible execution, but just a great story. I want to say there's that Dinner with Andre, which is just like one thing, but I guess like The Room. No, not The Room. The Room's crappy execution too. I can't think of an example right now, but it'll come to me. I'm not used to having these on the spot. But you get a really crappy, like a really, really good story that's poorly executed. People will appreciate it over time. In fact, you'll probably end up getting people who like the lack of execution almost as like a stylistic choice. It's almost like when you hear a tape, somebody's been playing a cassette tape for like 500 plays, and it has like a roughness to it. It's at the point now that people treat that as an aesthetic thing, like the VHS tape look. Everybody loves the VHS tape look. Heck, I have it myself. Let me switch over to it. Do I still have it here? Is it this one? Yeah. The idea is like this was like a technical execution issue. And now it's at the point that people add this as a style. I add this to my videos because I enjoy the look. I want people to get into the vibe of what it was like back then. Anyways, back to normal. Man of Steel is the greatest Superman movie ever made. This is my hill. Well, it's a bad hill, sir, because Superman 2 was the greatest Superman movie ever made. There's something about the sequels, 80s sequels, because back then, here's another thing, side note. Back in the day, in the 80s and early 90s, people didn't think of sequels as IP or products to distribute. They would ultimately change things, like Gremlins versus Gremlins 2. It's not the same movie. Highlander versus Highlander 2. It's not the same movie. You want to know my hill to die on? I think Highlander 2 is a fucking amazing film. And the reason I say that is because I watched Highlander 2 before I watched Highlander 1. And I agree, Highlander 1 is a fucking amazing movie. But Highlander 2, if you don't know Highlander 1 exists, is an amazing movie. But they're not the same movie. Because they're like, do you have to? Do you need a Marvel Cinematic Universe for the Highlander? It's like, no. You got the premise. You got, immortals, head chopping, whatever. But they throw it into like a cyberpunk, like, what if we did this? And I love when movies have that. Well, what if we did this? That's just so crazy it might work. I think some of the best movies start with that. Well, what if we did this? Fucking awesome, man. The Flowers in the Attic was so incestuous, like Kings and Queens and Guillotine. Yeah, there's I probably won't do that on this channel. It would be such a departure from what I normally do, and I don't want to watch it again to make sure it stands up. Fuck. It's just such a depressing movie, man. You don't want to watch it. But yeah, Superman 2. I think Superman 2 was brilliant in that too. Like, Superman 1 was like a fucking amazing, for coming out in the 70s, really amazing comic book movie as well. Even though that one is more like the G-rated, friends, everybody's hopeful. But Superman 2, the idea of Superman giving up his powers, winning him back for Lois, the villain being a somewhat ally, it was like very complex as far as like the character web, considering it came out in 1982. And Christopher Reeves was like, yeah, give me the spandex suit, but I'm going to go work out first. He actually said, like, don't pad my suit. I'm just going to go work out. He was already like 6'5". He's already a monster. He and Dolph Lundgren, 6'5", monstrous men. And that's the one thing I love too. So like, you watch The Punisher now. What's the new guy? He's like my height. He's like 5'9", 5'10", something like that. Which, not disparaging him, but what do they do to him? They have to make his gear look tactical. They got to put fucking this and that on it, the belt on it, a plate on here. What'd they do for the Dolph Lundgren Punisher? They gave him the t-shirt. They're like, here you go. There's something to be said for character choice when they're like, the man's physical presence is all you need. Schwarzenegger, that's why Schwarzenegger was so great. Like, you watch him in Conan, what's he wearing? A fucking loincloth. The most imposing man in cinematic history, wearing underwear. That's it. I heard there was a Donner cut for Superman 1 too. Why would there be a Donner cut for... Did he even do Superman 1? I know there's a Donner cut for Superman 2, which is good, the better one. Thank you, John Bernthal. And it was good. But there's no way he stands up to Dolph Lundgren, where they're like, here, man. They give him a shotgun. They give him a pistol. Here you go. Pistol, t-shirt. Most imposing Punisher you've ever seen. The Punisher's superpower is just having more dog fighting him than anywhere else. He's Batman. The Punisher is Batman. That's it. I mean, to be fair, Batman was technically just the Shadow. But because of... they had to separate him from the Shadow, and they had that whole Silver Age of movie things where it's like you can't kill people or whatever. They had to have that Batman doesn't kill thing. But they made the Punisher after all that nonsense. So they're like, yeah, the Punisher is essentially Batman. Peak human performance kind of stuff. That's why the Punisher Warzone is like the spiritual sequel to it. Yeah, and that's the thing. I keep hearing about this. I remember watching it once, and I didn't like it. And I think the big reason, and I will argue, if you watch the Warzone and you watch the Dolph Lundgren Punisher, you'll see what I mean when I talk about the deceptive complexity of what they did with the Dolph Lundgren one, with the character arcs and that kind of stuff. You notice that the Warzone Punisher, they caught the idea of how to make the symbolic violence, how to make it stylized. Like, that part of it was great. But what they missed out was on the story elements. The making the hero his own thing, the giving the character arcs to characters you weren't expecting that surround it, the serialized nature of it. Yeah, there was like hammier acting in Warzone as well, but again, I don't fault a movie for chewing the scenery, because sometimes a movie can work when you have actors that are chewing the scenery. A movie can work when, like Conan, Schwarzenegger is horrible as an actor, but Conan worked perfectly for that. Matrix, Keanu Reeves, wooden actor, very little emotion to express, worked perfectly for The Matrix. So yeah, the chewing the scenery, the hammy acting, the overly theatric part of it. Al Pacino on Heat, same example too. Pacino was playing like a cartoon character in Heat. But do you ever look at Heat now going, ugh, his acting is so hammy? No, you're like, this is the greatest fucking movie ever, and it is. Oh, Superman 1 and 2 were written by the Godfather guy, Puzo. It's like, and when I say complexity, I don't want people to think complexity just means make it more convoluted or more complex or whatever. When I talk about complexity in character and movie and story, it's multiple simple things intertwined together. That's what creates the complexity, and I think that's where people get it wrong, because they think, oh, well, this movie that came out last year is complex. It's not complex. It's just convoluted. Like, you have to understand physics to get... Like, shut up. You know what complex is? Complex is in the Yakuza and the Italian Mafia, both being villains. The Punisher wants to kill them both. The Yakuza kidnaps the Mafia's children. The Punisher realizes the only reason they could do that is because he killed all the Mafia guys. So he's like, these kids are dying because I was too good at my job, and so now I have to save the children of my enemy because that's the right thing to do. And so now the villain, the Mafia, and Frank go to fight the Yakuza to save the kids. And then when they save the kids, what's he do? He kills the father in front of them. That's a very complex thing. And if you watch it beat for beat, there is a lot of set pieces that happen. Not all of them are like action set pieces. They only have the 3 action set pieces. There's the... Like, for big action set pieces, there's the dockyard with the Navy and the Yakuza. When the Yakuza, the Mafia, and Frank first meet and start fighting. There is the Yakuza headquarters at the end. And then there is, what would be the third part? I don't want to say the breakout, the prison breakout. There might only be the 2. Oh, no. When he first goes to the amusement park to break out the kids and fight the Yakuza. So there's only like really 3 action set pieces in a comic book action movie, but there's tons of little ones. There's that scene in the prison where Frank's partner tries to like get through to him. He's like, dude, I can save you. I'm here for you. He's like, nah, I'm dead, man. Fuck it. There's the scene where they're at the cop station and the new cop, the boss lady's like, I can actually use a computer. I think we found him in the sewer. There's the part in the sewer where they spread out. There's all these little action set pieces in there, and they just don't. And they're all very simple in and of themselves. In a vacuum, nothing complex in one. Goes in the sewer, talks about how Frank helped him when he was a drunk, and now he wants to save him back. Very clear character motivation right there. He saved me, so I want to save him. But you add that. You add the beginning scene where it's like, I'm a young cop, I'm the best of the best, but I actually believe in your cause. I want to work with the best cop out there who nobody believes anymore. Nobody believes in them. Very simple premise. You've seen movies that do that all the time. But they add like 15 of these things and they put them all together, and then it creates this intricate web. And you're like, oh, how did things play out then? And don't get me wrong, in a lot of situations, they get a very easy answer, in which case, like, the force of will of the Punisher will win overall. But they just don't end it on violence. That's why at the end, when Castle kills Franco, shoots him, bam, dead. And that could be like a great action movie. If you were to watch like a complicated action story now, that was it. Kills the villain, leaves. Fuck it, I'm out of here. What happens then? Franco's kid pulls up a gun, goes to shoot him. He's like, you killed my dad, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And he's like, actually, yeah. I probably do deserve this one. This is punishment. And he's kind of like, yeah, this kid, if I was this kid, I'd want it too. So he just takes the gun. He's like, all right, just do it. And then the kid realizes, like, I'm not a villain. I'm not an asshole. My dad was a villain. And it's kind of more, he wasn't mad at Frank. He didn't want revenge on Frank. He just realized, like, I learned that my dad was an asshole. And he cries. Punisher's like, sorry, kid. But he can't just be like the father figure's like, hey, man, don't worry about it. Don't do drugs. He's like, just so you know, this doesn't change anything. If you start doing crime, I'm going to fucking kill you too. It's like, God damn. And they throw little shit in like that. And it makes perfect sense because they've been building it through all these like 15 different simplistic stories that were churned together in this magical stew of movies. One second here. At 5'9", I feel like I'm in good company with the likes of Ryan and Chest Rockwell, for fuck's sakes. Don't worry about the Tate stuff. Yeah, for those of you who are here, who've come here strictly for the movie stuff, there is a whole iceberg of lore involving. We'll get to that when we get to that. When Marvel made The Punisher, it was basically a New York liberal trying to reinterpret the Mac Bolan character for... Mac Bolan? Who the fuck is Mac Bolan? You guys are making me look stuff up, and I swear to God, if this is some, like, porn... Okay. Oh! The Executioner, Sicilian Slaughter, Mac Bolan. I see what you're saying. Dude, there's a whole pulp character that I had never heard of before. An action-adventure series, created by Don Pendleton, 69, continuing to this day. 600 novels? Jesus fucking Christ, man. Vietnam War, father, steelworker, no point finding those away, bigger and at home. Oh, dude. I did not know about this guy. That's actually pretty awesome. See, now that's the part that bugs me too, because if they did this, I have to go read it, but this is why my new book, I named the guy Jack Long, or Jake Long. I don't know, there's this thing, there's a certain naming convention you have to use on these pulpy action-adventure serials. Like, yeah, sure, Britain uses Sherlock Holmes. Canada and Britain uses, like, James Bond. But, like, with America, yeah. Fucking awesome. Mac Bolan. What was the other one? Doc Savage. It was always very, like, bop, bop. As few syllables as possible. John Carter. Mac Bolan. It was just fucking in your face. I love that shit. Alan Shore. Yeah, exactly. And you can totally do that. Nobody's saying you have to make the Punisher do what the Punisher does. But that's the thing. It's how he gets there. It just has to make sense. It has to be a good story. And I'd argue, I haven't watched the Punisher a second time. And that's my one thing with these ones. With the Marvel movies that have come out in the last little bit, and the Marvel shows, is I haven't watched them twice. I tried for a bit, and I will admit, the original Iron Man fucking still holds up. But to watch it now, you realize how far they've strayed from a very good formula for making movies. They tried, and Iron Man, they did it. So what they did there, they figured, make the guy fight his opposite. That was always the main thing. You have to fight your shadow. That's why Iron Man had to fight evil Iron Man in the first one. Ant-Man had to fight evil Ant-Man. Captain America had to fight evil Captain America. Everybody always had to fight their opposite. It was a good system. Yeah, Jack Ryan's another good example. Are you aware that Jake Long is a Dosney character? I've never heard of Dosney. Doesn't really matter. The reason why, and to be fair, the Jake Long, it says here he plays football. But, the reason I picked it is because the original, like the character originally starts as the name Jakov Longhouse. It's supposed to be like I think it's Serbian. But then the idea of like Jakov. And anyways, symbolically it makes sense why the initial character's like that. But he gets, they fake his death and then he has to change his name. And because he's not very creative at the time, just goes from Jakov Longhouse, which again, Longhouse references, anybody who knows my work and understands that. Just Jack Long. Something simple, catchier, shorter, because he can't think very well. And then he kind of edges into it. So it's Tug Speedman. In your face, Ryan Stone. Yeah, Ryan Stone, another example. It's kind of what I picked. Oh, Disney character, that's what you meant, not Dosney. Disney gets everything. They probably stole it from Aesop's Fables. Yeah, so if you learn nothing else, it's like, this is why I did the channel, and this is why I'm doing the channel now. You see all these people, and they're not really watching movies, though. They're using movies to funnel you towards the things they want to talk about, because they can't entertain and inform you with the things they want to talk about. Critical Drinker, for example, he wants to shit on feminists making slop movies. He doesn't give a shit about Star Wars. He doesn't give a shit about talking about movies. He uses them as a facade to shit on Kathleen Kennedy and the problem with new stuff, and to kind of hide that. And I'm on my list of things to do is to read his books to see if they're any good. Maybe they're great, but I have a feeling if it's anything like the way his movie project went off, probably not. Again, it's not professional envy. It's just if you're going to be the critical drinker, be fucking good at stories anyway. It's hard to be a critic if you're no fucking good at it yourself. I'm not even saying be great, just be good. Monkey Luffy. So So when I watch this, and I watch, Jeremy from the Quartering doing it too, when I watch communists, fucking commie bastards on YouTube, and they just want an excuse to talk about capitalism. So the only reason they're talking about Marvel movies is because they want to, I've read Karl Marx. Like, no, you didn't. I mean, you pretend to. Oh, you saw the Cliff Notes. I asked Grok. But here's my video essay, because I hate my dad. And what I realized is, like, the more I was watching it, I watched movie review people. There's the nerds that just talk about the box art and the packaging. There's communists who are talking about it with their little commie babble video essays. The critical drinker types are out there just outrage baitings, like, hey, you know what sucks? Fucking women. And I'm like, nobody's watching a movie for the movie's sake. I'd argue there's only one guy who did. Who's that? Fuck, I should know his name too. He's always on Nebula now. Oh, what the fuck is his name? He's the one who loves the Fast and the Furious. I can't remember it. You recognize him because he has that hand puppet that's in his things. And he makes like little set comedies. He's got the little Asian girl. And he's always at his parents' house. I don't remember why. I can't remember his name. But he was talking about how, like, the Fast and the Furious movies are high art. How... Anyways, he's the only one I actually think watches movies and reviews them on their own merits. You know what I mean? So I just realized there's, like, nobody doing it. So why wouldn't I do it? And it's great because then you get to curate. And I think that's one thing that's missing now, too. So when you stick around here, you're going to see a lot more of this. Because, like... You have unlimited choice right now. Unlimited. You can, with a click of a button, you have the access to 99% of human history. But it's unfiltered. You have no idea what's any good. Go to Netflix right now. Just go to their For You algorithm page. What's it there? 90% slop. I guarantee you spend more time surfing through that than you actually have picking it. And what do you end up picking? It's something you probably don't even like, but it's popular right now. So you're like, whatever, I'll give it a shot. And then you're like, ugh. Halfway through it, you picked up your phone and you were fingering TikTok. You know what I mean? So there's like a real... And ideally, if I could sum this up in an analogy, it's I get to be the guy working at Blockbuster and you're the couple who walks in. It's like, what do we want to watch on a Friday? What's good right now? And then I get to sit there and pull a Quentin Tarantino and tell you, dude, you haven't watched The Killer yet? Oh, it's the greatest movie ever. What are you into? I want something that the girlfriend will get into, but I need like gratuitous nudity and tits in it. It's like, oh, Basic Instinct. You'll get there now. It's like a melodrama, but it's a satire of a melodrama. You're like, really? Slavoj Zizek made a film. Jesus. Made a film discussing movies for any of the other stuff. No shit. Talked about Hitchcock's Bird in the Black and White Sitting in a Rowboat. People have been trying this long before YouTube. Oh, I know what you mean. I understand exactly what he did. Yeah, I don't like that shit. I don't. Anyone like Speed Racer 2008? I haven't watched the Speed Racer one. I never got into old Speed Racer and that. So yeah, when I get in there, it's like, yeah, curation. And if you're just a Zoomer who's never watched movies before and you think movies are slop, I would argue, I'd say, dude, get in on this channel. Because there's no way. Like, I'm looking at the catalog right now. Let me pull up the catalog. It's actually a well-organized video collection, so... You don't know what you like. You watch I Come in Peace. You're like, oh, okay, whatever. It's just some movie. And you're like, oh, it's like a serialized... It's a cop movie. It's a sci-fi movie. It has like a crazy premise, but it carries it through very competently executed. You're like, dude, that's actually pretty good. And then I show you King of the Kickboxers. I show you one that's like very cheaply executed. But but the story is such an easy story to tell. It's the same story as Kickboxer, but it was told like a year later and cheaply. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. I get how I can watch shitty movies executed well. You're like, yeah. Then what comes next? Wrath of Khan. You're like, holy fuck. Somebody made Moby Dick. Somebody made The Duelists. Somebody made like these very good stories and they attached it to current IP and they elevated the art. Star Trek 2 is still the greatest Star Trek movie. Absolutely. And then Rambo 3. What's wrong with Rambo 3? You watch Rambo 3 and you watch how First Blood transformed into Hollywood they would call it slop today, but like, no, it wasn't slop. They same thing as the Punisher does here, where it like slips in little bits of stuff that's super interesting, creates character moments, and then they add it to like blockbuster Hollywood shit. It literally is peak. They peaked the genre on that. And I can't glaze it hard enough. And then you watch Gattaca, it's like, oh wow. A more contemporary melodrama, asking questions, the science fiction Isaac Asimov stuff implemented there. They make you cry over a doctor helping a guy pass his piss test. Only a movie could do something like that, man. Anybody who's ever taken a piss test, you never even think about crying. Way of the Gun. I show you like a gritty, one of the better shootout movies, like Bonnie and Clyde for the 90s, and you're like, holy fuck, this is good too. If you're a Zoomer, you've never watched movies, you're like, this stuff is awesome. I show you like cheaper indie ones too, Six String Samurai. This is why I don't shit on people for like hammy acting or the stories for being kind of goofy, because it's a very goofy premise. It's Mad Max meets Fist of the North Star meets fucking every samurai film ever meets a 1950s bebop themed thing. And you're like, holy fuck, this is actually really good. Then Sniper. It's an action movie, but it's a melodrama. You're like, holy fuck. And then The Substitute. You're like, Jesus. They even did that with like the whole we can fix the schools and the inner city stuff. You're like, oh my god, Usual Suspects, Major League, Spaced Out. I even give you like a British sex comedy. You're like, fuck, this is actually kind of funny. What do I got next? King of New York. And you're like, holy fuck, this is stylized awesomeness. And then even anime. Because a lot of guys are like, oh, you don't like it. And like, no, anime is good too. Here's Ghost in the Shell. Here's Kickboxer with Van Damme. Death Wish. You're like, dude, they had a grape scene in that one. Fuck me, man. Macross Plus, you're like, this is anime, but it's a melodrama. Guys aren't supposed to like melodramas. Like, no, you can like a melodrama. Dirty Harry, Dead Leaves is like, this is like, I don't understand what happened. I'm going to have a follow-up to this one, by the way. Crank 2, High Voltage. If you've never watched it, it gets a category of its own. Like, Crank is a good movie, but Crank 2 is like Dead Leaves in the sense that you're like, what the fuck did I just watch? And then you watch it again, you're like, oh, what the fuck did I just watch? But that's awesome. And it does well, and it does better. And it doesn't matter. Dead Leaves came out in 2003. Just right after that one, 3 Days of the Condor came out in 1974 or something like that. And you're like, geez, that's another spy melodrama. Really fucking good. Then Sneakers. They did it again in the 90s. Holy shit. 50 years of cinema, and there's such great stuff, and I think that's the one value in here. And then The Punisher. I can show you guys how to enjoy yourselves. I can give you like curated lists. And it's not, and the only theme is just like well executed that runs the gamut of human emotion and storytelling. Crank 2 is just like, oh, it is not like Inception. Inception is Inception. Crank 2 is a fever dream. It is a movie that does its best to confuse you. It has like all the pieces of a good movie, but the way it arranges them confuses you. Yeah, Crank and Crank 2 back in the day were both insane in a great sense. Oh yeah, there's just something about that, because you know what it is? The problem with the serialized movies, like, and I'm going to end on this one. The problem with these serialized movies you watch is that, here, one sec, dude, I was talking about the watch today. I actually put it on. This thing weighs like a pound. I hate wearing this on my wrist. Is that if you watch too many of like serialized, formulaic movies, you kind of get bored of them. And the beauty of movies like Crank 2 or Dead Leaves is that they promise to shake that up. Like, yeah, you will get all of the hallmarks of a properly executed movie, but it is so confusing. You're always guessing. And so it's like a palate cleanser. See, I'm not describing Inception. The reason you think I'm describing Inception, the Inception theme is incoherent, but the plot is very coherent. It's a heist movie, essentially. Inception is science fiction's Ocean's 11. That's what I would say. If you're watching Inception, you're watching Ocean's 11. You've got a team, got a heist, got to grab a MacGuffin. We're going to get in there. Yeah, and the early Guy Ritchie movies, those are like old gangster films and stuff too, but that's a whole different genre. I'm going to leave you on that one. So anyways, if you have not watched The Punisher in '89, watch it. Tomorrow, the video's coming out. Dude, get on the channel. I already know it's popular. the Punisher, for some reason, I'm watching the trailer, and normally my trailers, they do okay and they kind of level off. This one just fucking blowing the fuck up. So I know you guys are in there, so go check it out. What am I going to do next week? I don't know. My girl keeps telling me get Flash Gordon out, and I'm like, I might do Flash Gordon next week. But like, I want to do Conan. I actually do want to do Crank 2. I do want to do one of the Guy Ritchie films. I'm not sure which one yet. I might do Rock and Rolla. I might do Snatch. But everybody does Snatch. So I'd probably either do Lock, Stock or Rock and Rolla. Because Rock and Rolla was like... It's probably his best. But it's like his least known best. It's very weird. But then there's gangster stuff. Like, I really want to do Dick Tracy. But then every now and then I see like some of the bigger channels, they're doing movies, and I'm like, fuck, I should do that one too. I really want to hit up Long Kiss Goodnight. It's just one of the best noir Christmas films ever, and it's starting to get some traction again. It's one of my Christmas favorites. So we'll see. Yeah, the thing about the Matrix trilogy with the Matrix Reload is people were expecting more Matrix and not some esoteric stuff. Well, the thing with the Matrix is it was esoteric stuff. Esoteric stuff mixed with a Hong Kong action film. The problem was they hyper-focused on the Hong Kong action part, and then they forgot that they still have to tell a story. But they couldn't tell a story. There was no story to tell. How do you tell a story? And what they should have done is just looked at Superman. What did Superman do? How do you have an invincible god in a movie? What do you do about that? Superman would have been the perfect choice. Had they done that with The Matrix 2 and made it Superman 2, would have probably been better. On that note, do watch The Punisher, and then tomorrow, watch my thing on The Punisher. I'll see you boys later.
Do you like action? Do you yearn for a comic book movie that doesn't spawn 15 critical drinker hate-watching reviews? A movie that has more violence than we deserve? How about a movie made for kids, with gratuitous nudity for no reason other than it's awesome? Well, I have the story for you.
People have anything better to do with your time? It's 2 o'clock in the goddamn morning, for Christ's sake. Shit.
Simple and effective stories. Stories perfectly told by a director, the man who edited Terminator 1 and 2, True Lies, Starship Troopers, The Last Boy Scout, Commando, and Rambo 2, trained by Alfred Hitchcock, comes a movie that gave a kid everything he ever wanted for Christmas. But Santa had a grenade launcher. A movie that refined the genre and set the stage for Blade to refine the R-rated comic book genre.
Take that message to your people.
A movie that reminded you that the greatest villains in cinematic history were the Japanese. They had Yakuza, business wizards, samurai, ninja, spies, and karate. Communists can't even villain half as good as this. It's the pinnacle of comic movies. If you like fantastically unrealistic movies, sincerely executed, over-the-top violence, high theater, indulgent pain, and the perfect mix of mindless action and mindful characters, this is for you. This movie is your cool older brother who came home from college and brought you stories of all the hot chicks that are waiting for you. It's the peak of comic, in The Punisher, 1989.
All the way in.